The Alabama Booksmith presents Author Spotlight. Because every book in our store is signed, our Wall of Fame displays a breathtaking array of writers and signatures. Close-up shots reveal giants of literature, acclaimed historians, stars of stage and screen, our nation's leaders, famous sports heroes, and thousands of other esteemed authors. Today's Wall of Fame guests are Sonny Brewer and Michael White, who will discuss William Gay's newly discovered book, Fugitives of the Heart. And here are Sonny Brewer and Michael White with our host, Jake Reese.
Welcome, Sonny Brewer and Michael White. You guys should be considered heroes in the literary world. We apologize in advance for ignoring the marvelous books you have written over the decades, but we're here to discuss the remarkable discovery of your dear friend's genius manuscript. Let's start the conversation by our unequivocal declaration that Fugitives of the Heart is one of the best books we've ever read. We believe future literary scholars will place William Gay's name alongside Faulkner, Hemingway, Fitzgerald as one of the truly brilliant writers of his generation. Without getting too much into the details, Michael, please share the unearthing of this forever literary treasure.
Thank you. Well, first, it's a pleasure to be here with you and with Sonny.
Thank you.
And after William passed away almost 10 years ago now, the family got in touch with me and asked me did I want to look at William's papers. And so I immediately left the next morning and went down to Hole in Wall, Tennessee, and they presented me with 2 big tubs full of handwritten manuscripts. And I began examining those, and at the time they told me, you need to go in the attic of the house that William built back in 1978, where those kids had been raised. And eventually I went up and found the house and went up into the attic. And when I got in that attic, I had never seen anything like it. The air was filled with spider webs. It was like Spanish moss hanging from the ceiling. And I made my way through the spider webs, and against one wall of the attic was a huge bookshelf holding thousands of volumes of books, and that was William's personal collection of books, his library. And I started working my way down through those books, and at the end of the shelf I found a cardboard box, and I opened up that box, and it was like one of those special moments. Inside this box was a huge pile of typescripts, and I started looking through these typescripts, and I found there were 2 books typed up in those typescripts. And then I went a little further, and against the wall was a couple of sheets of sheetrock that hadn't been used, that were leaned up against the wall. And I looked behind them, and here was a plastic milk carton, and it was full of notebooks. And so I brought all that home, and I put together a team of people who were old friends of William, including Sonny, who have been working for the last 10 years to type and compile and edit those manuscripts. And in there were 4 novels and a collection of unpublished short stories. And this is the 4th of those 4 novels, and the collection of short stories will be coming out next year.
That's one of the more amazing stories I've ever heard in this business. It's phenomenal. Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much. And now, Sonny, as one of William's closest confidants, give our audience the 2-minute history, if that's impossible, of his extremely unlikely publishing career?
Well, you know, Stephen King said that William Gay, and this was in Entertainment Weekly's, he did an annual, my favorite 10 books of the last year, Stephen King, and he wound it down, and my favorite book of last year was William Gay's Twilight. William Gay's Twilight, and he said in that article that William Gay was a national treasure laboring in obscurity in the hills of Tennessee. And this new book, Fugitives of the Heart, is evidence that he is a national treasure, and a treasure of William's gift doesn't go out of fashion, even though he passed away in was it 2012? Yes, in 2012. And so the books are as fresh as ever. You know, the genius is there, and this book, Fugitives of the Heart, I can't wait to see what happens with it. I think it's going to surpass his others in terms of popularity.
I thoroughly agree with you. And since you brought that up, may we chat a bit about that remarkable story that William has given us. Michael, do you feel, and you'll be an expert on this, that the Mark Twain homage the publisher claims is fair?
It's absolutely fair, and William was a huge fan of Mark Twain, and when William was growing up, he read everything he could get his hands on. And when he came across Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer, here were two kids living in the country in a very rural environment, and this was books that he could relate to in a way unlike any of the other books. You know, they were fine art books, but they also dealt with country people living in the country. And William was particularly fond of Huck Finn, and particularly of the first page where Huck is saying, "This guy wrote a book about me, and he wrote a book about my friend Tom too, and it's pretty much the truth, but there's a few stretchers." And William was so fond of that statement, and every time he would say, "with a few stretchers," he'd get this little smirk on his face, like, yeah, you know. And so we didn't really get the picture of William Gay's literary achievement until after he died. When he was alive, he was considered a Southern writer, kind of a Gothic Southern writer kind of guy. But William read everything he could get his hands on, and he loved, of course, Faulkner and Cormac McCarthy and the Southern literature stuff. But he also loved the horror genre. He loved the ghost stories. He loved the detective stories, and he particularly loved Mark Twain.
Mark Twain. Well, you legitimized the publisher's claim.
Yeah.
Sonny, how much of the Fugitives of the Heart do you believe came from William's obsessive reading, and how much from his life's adventures?
I think the two, his life's adventures, his life, and his reading are irrevocably intertwined and can't even be separated. William, so this is an episodic novel, this Fugitives of the Heart. We've got Marion Yates moving from one adventure, one threat to another, and always in motion, from the Hurricane to Ackerman's Field, one place into another. Another thing is coming up that's scary, that's threatening, that involves a girl, Cassie. But so William himself left the Navy, went AWOL, didn't like San Diego, and just left and hitchhiked toward Tennessee. He's living the kind of thing that he writes. And the state troopers got him in Texas and said, you can't just walk away from the Navy to live your adventure on the road, Mr. Gay. You coming back. Took him back and put him in jail for a while, in the brig, whatever. So he lives these stories, and if he's not living them actually on the road hitchhiking, he's living them in his mind. There's a paragraph in Along Home that begins morning, period. The English teacher would say that's not a sentence, but that's how that paragraph begins. Morning, period. And then it goes on, and so I said to William, in the paragraph I could quote by heart, we won't. I said to William, how long did it take you to construct that paragraph? It's a poem. And he said, oh, I don't know, however long it took me to set it down. I called it bullshit. I said, it can't be that you wrote that in the time it took to write it. He said, yes, because when I'm hanging sheetrock, I'm not really hanging sheetrock. It's a miracle he has his fingers and thumbs. He's not hanging sheetrock, he told me. He said that while he's on the job, he's constructing that paragraph, that story, those other pages, so that he gets off work, goes home, and transcribes his thoughts of the day. And his thoughts are a combination of what he's read and what he's lived. And it's a thing of great beauty to be allowed to read it.
I like what you said. I think every book he's written is a thing of great beauty. Well said. I can't wait for the general public to read this book and for us to hear back from those folks who don't know William's writing, and to thank us and to thank Livingston Press for putting this out, and to thank you guys and
to verify for themselves why this man won a MacArthur Genius Grant, why he won an American Arts Grant, $100,000, $40,000, why he was given that kind of recognition. It's valid, and the readers will decide.
Well, it's probably a little stretch to say Dickens, Fitzgerald, so many of the writers that we now hold so high in their lifetimes weren't known as well as William Gay. So there. Michael White and Sonny Brewer, we began this talk vowing to ignore the many books you have published, but we do want to pay tribute to the significant contributions that both of you did in this book. It wouldn't be here without you. And Sonny, your foreword, in my humble opinion, gives the readers a personal glimpse into William's very essence, and as a man and as a writer. And we thank you for what I think is a perfect opening to this book. And Michael, the postscript describes William's passion for writing, and truly, again, in my humble opinion, it was a necessary appendage for the book. Thank you so very much. And a huge thank you not only for making this book a reality, thank you to both, but thank you for signing our books. And you may purchase signed first editions of Fugitives of the Heart at alabamabooksmith.com.